You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey all, welcome back to Cards to the Moon. This is episode 127, and my name is Clark from 5 Card Guys on Instagram and 5cardguys.com. With me, as usual, is Hyung of Integrity Sports Cards, and filling in for John once again this week is, you guessed it, Will. Always good to have you on the pod, Will. Thumbs up, he gives a thumbs up. So off the top today, we'll just get right into it. There was an interesting interview that Josh Luber, you remember him? I believe he's still in charge of the Zero Cool cards that focus on pop culture trading cards. But anyway, he was talking on the Luka Tiger LeBron podcast recently, and he mentioned that he thinks, to paraphrase, there needs to be more consolidation of the different buying and selling platforms currently out there, so that most of the supply can be in one place to create true liquidity and true markets for the cards. In other words, he thinks right now there's too much fragmentation, which creates this volatility in some card prices, because, for instance, it could have been sold for super cheap if it was on a platform that didn't have much visibility to begin with. And I'd imagine then that becomes the new comp, right? So what do you guys think of what Josh Luber is suggesting to have sort of a main stock exchange, so to speak, for cards?
Isn't that part of the chase though? Finding the good deals? Like I when I go look for cards, I'm like, yo, I got this out at Blowout Forums. Like, nobody knows about Blowout Forums. Like, right. I'm glad nobody knows about Blowout Forums because I just got a deal. Like, that's part of the chase, is the hobby. So I don't know necessarily if I get what he's saying. It sounds more like there needs to be technology with more data that allows us to understand if something's selling, or at least it gets the most eyes, so it's somewhat regulated. He used the Michael Jordan BGS 9 as an example, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's tough because there's so many cards in baseball and sports cards in general that, like, I don't think it's feasible to do it. I think all at once, where now we follow this one system where that's the be all say all of things. I think part of a lot of hobbyists is the chase. So there's going to be a lot of private sales where we don't use platforms, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the comp that, you know, is on the black market, let's say, and the new market that they're talking about is, you know, the eBay, PWCC, all those marketplaces where they're all aligned in terms of value and stuff. But I don't think that it's a huge issue, because then you're discounting the hobbyists who enjoy stuff like that, because it's not necessarily all about the money at times, right? You might just be trying to make lateral moves or making trades. So that's given that you want regulation in a official marketplace of sports cards, which I think it's inevitable, to be honest, eventually. Yeah. But I just don't think it's going to be like, oh yeah, everybody's on this and it's the best thing ever, because I think there's another side to it too.
I get that.
Yeah, that's actually kind of changed my opinion from when you originally shared this with us, Clark. Yeah, that idea of, like, you know, sometimes you're able to get a steal. Originally, my thought was like, yeah, it's kind of annoying because sometimes I'll see a pretty rare card that I have sell on a PWCC auction, and it's like, oh, I know that nobody had eyeballs on that.
Yeah.
Or like on an eBay listing where it was improperly listed, and then like somebody sold it for, or like people didn't bid on it because they didn't see it. Or, you know, when somebody bids, like puts a bin offer or puts a bin on a card that's $1,000, but they don't know the value, so they sold it for $200, and then all of a sudden that's the comp. And so, like, I get what Josh Luber's saying, like, oh, we want to hammer out some of those inefficiencies and whatnot, but that's also the fun of the hobby, right? Like, this all kind of stems from our childhood like being out on recess and just trading cards with friends and collecting and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I kind of like what Hyung was saying. I think there's a lot of fun in meeting people and
sure,
going through different avenues and finding steals and deals. And like Hyung said, a lot of the deals that happen are in person, right? Like at trade shows and whatever. I am annoyed about the comps thing. I feel like nobody wants to comp my cards at the same value as they're comping their own cards, but that's a different thing altogether.
That's hobby logic.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, when I first saw this, I think you mentioned it already, Hyung. Like, I think it's inevitable that we're going to go to this main system where whatever it is, if it stays eBay or if it's something else, another buying, selling platform, where the majority of cards can be bought and sold and have the most eyeballs, right? But in the meantime, I think there's good buying opportunities for savvy buyers out there. Like, if it's inevitable, I don't know how long it'll take. This is the opportunity to look at other places, whether it's PWCC auctions or Golden even. Just try to take advantage of it as much as possible before things become consolidated. Because I think with tech, it's just natural for things to become more consolidated. The bigger tech company usually wins out. They just throw money into it and it just becomes about convenience at a certain point, right? So I think it's inevitable that way. But in the meantime, yeah, lots of good opportunities. And I guess to both your guys' points, like the trade shows will always be there, right? So I think that'll be, at least we'll have that moving forward. Even if there's one major buying selling platform, there's always the trade shows where we can wheel and deal and hopefully get some good deals still moving forward. All right, we'll see what happens. Let's move on now to hobby headlines. So here in Toronto, we have the biggest card show coming up next weekend. It's the Sports Card Expo, and I know we're all going to try to make it. And one thing I know that we're all at least going to try is to trade some of our current cards for something we like better, right? And Hyung, you've been on the dealer side of the shows, so you've had trading experience. Just curious to hear your thoughts on this too. But just generally for this episode, I thought we could focus on essentially the art of the trade. Like when you look to trade your cards, is there anything you look for in a trading partner? Are there any rules you go by to try to make a trade possible? Do you have the same or different game plan when you go to a card show or trade show each time? Yeah, just throwing it out there. What do you guys think in terms of making good trades?
Well, one, I think personally trades are the way to go, especially if you're near to the hobby. You don't want to constantly trigger sales events unless you're a dealer, you have an LLC, you have a legit business that you're allowed to accept all these payments. So a lot of people, they do well maybe in the off season, they're getting excited to maybe sell some slabs, and then they accept all this email transfer. Here in Canada, at least, we have email transfer, which is so weird. I don't know why the US doesn't have email transfer now that I think about it. It's the most ridiculous. It's the most convenient thing. You literally send an email and you can send money over.
It's the best.
It's the best. It's like PayPal, but like connected to your bank. So anyways, trading is the way to go usually, especially if you're dealing with larger slabs. I think it's a lot more easier to liquidate if you have a bigger card as well, and you're looking to kind of get out of it where you don't want to necessarily put it to auction. You trade down for maybe lower slabs plus a bit of cash, whatever, a combination of both. From a trade perspective, I think just being prepared for the show. So your own inventory, make sure that your comps, your current comps, because people are going to use the same standards. There's nothing worse than, using 2021 comps on your cards and you're expecting to get this. It's going to totally take the experience out of you because you're going to want to wheel and deal. It's not easy. It's not like, oh, let's go to this trade show and we're going to have this great time. I'm telling you, you're going to be sweating your sack off. You're going to
work.
Like it's work. Like it's not easy, and it's probably hot in there, I personally like doing around, seeing what's around, seeing who's there, looking for people that I've dealt with in the past, seeing what they have. And usually the people that I deal with in the past, I usually deal with them again, to be honest, right? Because it's not necessarily about who wins in that situation. A guy could, move a card quicker than me, so he might be trading a card to me because it's more valuable to him, and he could, liquidate it quicker. I might, let go of it a little cheaper because I'm at the card show. He's offering it there. So try to get rid of, like I said in earlier shows, like cards that you don't really care about. This is your cash out period, and whatever you can get, give the guy a deal, or the next person that wants to make a bit of money, get rid of it, recirculate, and invest into good buying opportunities at the card show.
Yeah, good points.
Yeah, I think Hyung's absolutely spot on with the having your comps be accurate. I remember there's one guy he was interested in doing some trades, and he asked me what the comp was on one card, and I comped it a little high because I knew I was going to take a bath on it anyway. And he's like, "That's not the price of that." And I was like, "No, it is." He's like, "No, I collect all of those cards in that parallel. That's not the comp." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's not." He's just like, he doesn't want to do the deal anymore, right? Because he's just like, well, I can't trust this guy. But that's the same thing, right? Like when I go to these booths and I see you're selling a Bo Bichette Topps Chrome PSA 10 that's valued at like what, $15, $20, and you have it listed for $75. It's like, okay, I know I'm not going to spend. I have a limited amount of time at this show and a limited amount of energy. I'm not going to waste my time with the guy who's comping his cards at 5, 6x or comping at 2021 pricing. So I love what Hyung said about that. For me, like I would say the biggest tip that I got was actually from YouTube and watching kids go to trade shows, and like they have no shame. They're just like, they'll just go to every booth. And me and John were walking around at the last expo, and this kid just came up to every booth. He's like, "Hey, would you be interested in this card?" And it's like, "Sure, how much?" Like $10. Like, all right. Like, and then like this one kid came up to one booth. He was like, "Hey, would you be interested in this card?" He's like, "No, man, I sold you that card yesterday. Like, I'm the same booth." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And then he just walks over to the next booth. He's like, "Hey, would you be interested in this card?" He has no shame. He's not afraid. And I was really impressed. And I realized, I can't be afraid to ask. Right? Like, if you don't ask, you're never gonna be able to make a deal. Right. So you have to be willing to put yourself out there.
Good advice.
And you get rejected a ton, but you just let it wash off your shoulder. Right?
Sales 101, right?
Yeah.
For
you
sure.
you just have to be prepared for a high level of rejection. And I don't know, what are some other good tips? Wear comfy shoes.
Wear comfy shoes, yes.
Very good.
It's exhausting, man. Especially when you're primarily a baseball collector at the Toronto Sports Card Expo, and there's like maybe 15 baseball booths, but they're all like spread throughout the whole conference center. So you gotta go back and forth. And
I think cash still works too. A lot of people
need cash.
like cash.
You have to have cash.
Yeah, have some cash on you. Before it was like bring a boatload of cash. Now it's like bring decent amount of cash. You could do any big transactions through, digital means, but like if there's a, couple $100 deal breaker here and there, it's always good to kind of have that cash lying around so you could close the deal really quick, right? So
yeah. No, really good advice. And I can attest to Will and John's not here, but both these guys like hustle. It's like, we go to the show together and they're like, where are they? They just go off and they're off to the races. So yeah, like, and I think I did mention in a previous podcast episode, they should have all, like, especially at the Sports Card Expo in Toronto, just have all the baseball card booths in the same area. That would help us a lot. This is my recommendation to the organizers of Sports Card Expo. So yeah, I'm actually looking forward to it. But you guys made some good points that I also had on the list. Like, Will, you mentioned check the comps on the dealer's table. If they're not reasonable, don't even waste your time there. Yeah. That's a really good point. Hyung, you just mentioned, like I'm always prepared to throw in a bit of cash to secure the trade. Usually, it's rare, in my experience anyways, to just do a straight up card for card trade.
Yeah.
And, they want a little bit of cash. You might have to overpay a little bit, but, if you believe in the player as an investor, or if you just like the card, why not overpay a little and just hold on to it? And then you just, have confidence that it'll go up over time, right? So,
especially if you have profits in it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Don't be too greedy. You know what I mean? Like, come on, just make the deal, right? So,
or it ends up being PC, and that's fine too. Like,
yeah,
I've got tons of cards that didn't pan out that are now permanent PC.
Yeah, and what other tips? I love like 2-for-1 or 3-for-2 deals if it works out for your favor. Yeah. You want the best card in the deal. Yeah. And
I was gonna say, if you have if you're the one who has the smaller cards and you're trying to like trade your bulk for one decent card, it's like you have to know that you're not getting close to value. You are trading away your junk base PSA 10s for like 50%, 60%,
right?
And you can't be upset because who wants to buy that base stuff, right?
Yeah, other than dealers that know they can liquidate it easier if they have a store back home, right? So give them the deal, and it's better for them to have it. Like, honestly, if you held on to it, it's just going to collect dust. Like, you're going to sell it for 50% on eBay anyways, right? If you're lucky.
Actually, that reminds me. I think like at the first expo, I had a ton of Boba Fett PSA 10 tops, either tops paper. Oh man, it's rookie mistakes. I should have listened. I should have listened to Hyung. This podcast should have been out more. There should have been more episodes. I would have learned. But I ended up, I think, like, let's say it was like $20 comped. I ended up selling it to him for like 15 each. And I think it was like 7 or 8 of them. And I was like, what are you going to sell them for? He's like, I'm going to try to sell them for like 18. He's like, if I make $3 off each one, then I'm fine. And I was just like, man, this guy's hustling to try and make like $20 off these cards. And I was like, I was actually grateful that I didn't have to do that hustle to try and make the $20. So I was like, yeah, I'll sell them at 15, I'll sell them at 14 or whatever it was I ended up trading them away for.
Yeah. Before we go on to the next segment, are there any trades that kind of stick to your mind in terms of like good trades that you've made personally?
I can only think of Clark's trade because he was literally right next to me.
That's a good example of like if you did the comps at that time, the Lewis Robert rookie auto and the Boba Fett rookie auto added together wasn't as expensive, or wasn't, it was undervalued than compared to just to the Judge refractor auto.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like he was getting the better part of the deal at that time.
Right.
But I just kind of had a hunch about Judge and it worked out in my favor. So that's a good example. But I mean, well, I was there when you got the Acuna. That was a pretty good trade.
Which
Acuna's,
I ended
the
up
purple auto,
purple Topps Chrome auto. Yeah, I can't complain. I traded away a bunch of base and lower. Oh, actually, he was chasing Pete Alonso stuff, so I traded away some decent Pete Alonso stuff. But I'm pretty happy with the Acuna.
Yeah,
I think the thing I'm happiest about is the Ohtani short print that I got. I traded it from a booth who doesn't value baseball cards at all. So those are the ones that target. Oh, that's a great tip. Like if you see one sport that's not in line with the rest of the cards, then that guy or that girl probably doesn't really care about that card. Got it from someone else in a trade and is just looking to get rid of it. So like I went to like one booth that was like primarily Pokemon, and he had a Lewis Robert Independence Day PSA 9. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get that.
Yeah.
And then the other booth I got a Shohei SP and BGS 9.5, and he was like primarily a hockey guy. So so I think those are my happiest trades.
Nice. Hyung, anything for you?
Trading wise, I've sold a bunch. I sold a lot just because we usually liquidate our slabs. This time I'm not setting up as a booth. Last time I was at the expo, I made a huge deal on that Soto Gatorade bath. I actually sold it. Yeah, and it was up there, and I remember my first one. That was when I got the Acuna Blue.
Great.
I traded the Acuna. I received the Acuna Blue Bowman Chrome, and I traded it was like a Volpe refractor auto at peak. Like I think it was like 3K at the time that I pulled. I sent it to PSA 10. That's why I traded too. So the deal was I had a Volpe refractor. I had a Bo Bichette gold Bowman Chrome like rookie auto PSA 10. It was a pop one, and a Vladimir Guerrero Gold Wave PSA 10 that was valued at like $1,600 at the time. Right. And then at the time, he had a blue Bowman 20, I guess Acuna's would have been 2017 Bowman Chrome.
Bowman Chrome? Yeah.
Yeah. And he had a blue, and at the time he had it listed for 15 Canadian. So I ended up trading a bunch of slabs for that with a little bit of cash, but I think I was only in like 7K Canadian for that whole blue Acuna, because I traded all the Volpe I ended up ripping. I ended up sending to PSA, so it was only a couple $100. I got 3,000 for that. The Bo Bichette I ended up buying for like 1,100 at the time. I got like 2,200 for that, I had a lot of value in that. So when I traded, I was getting max value for that card. And then I sold I held that blue Acuna and then sold it at Golden, for, I think it was a record breaking, sale for that blue Acuna, which was a 18.5 and, 18.5 US, and it was 15,000 US net. So, I ended up doing really well on that and it came from that Toronto Expo where I made a bunch of trades into a big card that I ended up going to Golden with it.
Yeah, nice. That was a huge one. I remember that. Yeah. And I guess the last thing I'll mention too, like with trading, it's supposed to be fun. The best outcome is when both sides feel they've won the deal. You know what I mean? Like you just value different things with other collectors. So It's not about winning or losing a trade, because it's impossible to tell at the time too anyways, right? So if you're happy with what you got, then it's all good.
I was going to say the best trades are the ones that kind of sting both sides.
Right.
Where you're like, I really hate losing this card. I really hate giving away this card. But then it's like, but there's potential in the card that I'm getting. So
yeah, for sure. All right. Hopefully that was useful for our listeners. And whenever you make it to the next local card show, hope you use these tips and let us know about it. See how it went for you guys. All right, let's go on to our next segment. We're calling Overrated, Underrated. And this edition is another grading edition because, we can't talk about grading enough these days. But this time I'm going to give you specific grades. All right. So that's the catch here today. All right. So let's begin with the ultimate PSA 10 graded cards. Are they overrated or underrated?
So this is listening. PSA 10 is interesting. Like PSA 10 is almost like, I don't even know how to map this out, because it's definitely overrated on everybody's scale, but at the same time, I want to say underrated. Like, you know what I mean? It's the same synopsis as getting a PSA 10. It's like, it could be a PSA 10. It might not be a PSA 10, but it's still a PSA 10. Kind of like that. So I'm going to actually go, normally I would say underrated because it's obvious. Why are we paying all this amounts, ridiculous amounts? But I'm going to say PSA 10 is a brand now. So there's so much brand value in a PSA 10 that I still think is industry standard. People are still paying a premium for it, and you could still get a premium for it. So I'm going to say it is still underrated because so many people are overrating it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm pure overrated just because I hate PSA. I mean, no, I don't hate PSA. I hate grading. So
okay.
Yeah. Until you get your PSA 10s.
Oh yeah, I want all my cards to be PSA 10 when I send them in. But I fully admit it's overrated.
Yeah, I'm with you, Hyung. Like, it's hard to say because, like, why is the PSA 10 the standard, right? And it hasn't even been the standard for that long, if you think about it, right? But facts are facts. It is the standard, and I really like what you said about it being a brand. Like, people say, yeah, it's a PSA 10, and especially in this market when things are down, PSA 10 seems to be the only thing that holds value, right?
Absolutely.
Meaningful value. So I'm going to say it's underrated still, although I hate that answer. It's underrated at this point in time. All right, let's look at the PSA 9. What do you guys think?
Ooh, nines are fine. We always say it in the hobby, nines are fine. Super underrated. Because I guarantee you half of those nines are BGS 9.5s. So if you're feeling a little in a gambling mood and you don't want to rip, why don't you just go crack and submit PSA 9s all day? You could get a deal and maybe, make some money in between.
Well, I mean, those PSA 9s, if you crack them and send them back to PSA, they're probably half of them are 8s and half of them are 10s.
They split the difference. It makes sense, though.
We're exposing PSA now.
No, we love you. Hey, I had a great submission. Keep those coming.
And I'm looking forward to having
I'll put my collector's PSA number up there.
I think 9s are underrated.
Okay. Man, you look at the value of PSA 9s though right now, eh? They're like equal to raw.
Yeah,
right?
that's stupid.
So that's crazy to me. So I don't know how to rank this. Is it now overrated because it's just doesn't hold value anymore, and you're grading it for, it's not cheap grading it and then getting it back at PSA 9. You're losing value on it most likely, right? So I'm going to say overrated, slightly overrated.
I will say something. PSA 9s, here's what I like about PSA 9s. I like PSA 9s that have great autos. To me, those are great BGS candidates. To me, a PSA 9 that looks clean, and maybe you submitted it on a bulk submission, and it looks clean. You're like, I don't know how this didn't PSA 10. It has a great auto. Crack that. In my opinion, submit to BGS. You can get the 10 auto, potentially the 9.5. That's a huge bump, in my opinion, from a PSA 9 non-auto. So, yeah, that's just a kind of side note there.
Yeah, it's a play for sure. All right, next one. We're going to move to Beckett. And, with the whole Beckett scale fiasco that we talked about in the previous episode with Will and John last week, just want to get your thoughts because we don't know what's happening. There hasn't been any new announcements as of this recording. So want to see what you guys think might be the play here. BGS 9.5, the True Gem Quad Gem. The initial announcement that Beckett made would have devalued this the most. So do you guys feel better about it that they retracted? I don't know. What are you doing with True Gem Quad Gems?
I think they're underrated, in my opinion. I think for the most part, a lot of people... I think there's a super high demand for True Gems regardless. Even though there's BGS has been in kind of like everybody's kind of brown list, I'd say. I think this is the only thing that are pristine 10s and I guess True Gems, True Gem Plus, people are still after, in my opinion. I think you could snag them for sometimes as low as half of a PSA 10. To me, that is a play in itself. Like, I think longevity wise, I think it's a great move in my opinion. And I think you could buy very good deals, at current market prices right now. So I'm going to say BGS 9.5 True Gems are underrated.
Okay. Yeah. BGS prices are just so low in comparison. And for me, like, all I want my grading company to do is just tell me it's gem mint. I don't care what number that is. I don't care what the subgrades say. As long as it says that it's gem mint, for me, I look at them all the same. PSA 10, BGS 9.5, and I know we're going to talk about SGC as well. Like, that's all I want the grading company to tell me. Is there some visible flaw to this card? Is it authentic? That's all I need the card grading company to do. And the fact that you could buy some BGS 9.5s at like half the cost of PSA 10s, it doesn't make sense because just to quote last week's episode, that's a pizza box. Like, you're paying double the price for a fancier pizza box. Like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So you guys aren't worried, eh? That whatever Beckett decides to do, the True Gem, Quad Gem, they're not gonna
no, because you just cross it over. Like, Hyung will crack all my cards for me, and we'll send them off to PSA
I've cracked
again
enough
and again.
that I have confidence now. I always sweat though. You're always like, God damn, why did I do this?
Yeah, you know what? I love the True Gem, Quad Gems. I was really disappointed especially at the news before they retracted. So I'm glad to see that they're rethinking what they said. And, you know, I think I mentioned in the past episode that they were sending out surveys. I signed up for it to give my input. And one of those questions were, what do you think about BGS 9.5 True Gem, Quad Gems? They're very specific about that question. And for me, the answer was like, people value this as a true gem mint. Like, this is, you know, in some people's eyes, a PSA 10, right? And by, you know, devaluing them with the initial announcement, that's gonna of course anger a lot of collectors. So I hope in my survey I got that point across, and I hope I influenced them enough to bump these guys to BGS 10 gem mint. You know, to your point, Will, that they become BGS 10 gem mints now. So I'm banking on that happening. Until that happens, I'll take the risk, pick up some more True Gem, Quad Gem cards that I like.
Yep.
All right, BGS 9.5. You know, I was gonna say min gem, but I'm gonna throw in also, like, because you mentioned, Will, like, you just care about whether it's gem mint, kind of like PSA 10 is gem mint, SGC 10 is gem mint. So instead of doing min gem, what do you guys think about BGS number grades with no subgrades? it just says gem mint. So BGS 10 with the new grading system, just say BGS 10 gem mint, BGS 9 mint plus, I don't know, whatever they turn, you know what I mean? Just they get rid of the subgrades because PSA and SGC don't have it. What do you think if BGS starts going that route? Because they offered, actually one of the questions on the survey was, what do you think about $9 BGS grading fees for 0 subgrades? Wow. And that's crazy. Wow. $9.
But what, like, see, to me as a business guy, I'm trying to figure out the logistics. How do you go from $30 to $9? What have you cut off other than, like, if you're grading the car, you got to look at the same thing. You got to look at the corners, the edges,
ink,
the surface.
Printer ink is $21.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to figure out how, like, you still have to grade it. So is it just, you know what I mean? They're able to process it quicker. Are they just doing a scan, like a rock hard review? Like, to me,
right.
I think older cards you could get away with non subgrades because, you know, nobody wants to take the risk of cracking a 9.5 with no subgrades of a LeBron James, Topps Chrome rookie, for instance, right? Cause that could easily come back, you know, a BGS 8 or whatever it is. So, I personally don't like non-subgrade BGS cards. I think the whole point of BGS is that subgrade. Like, that's kind of what defines them. And to me, if they go that route, then they're no different than SGC or even a CSG at this point, where it's just like, okay, I want the min gem or not the min gem, the true gem plus. That's what I'm looking for. Anytime I send a card to BGS, especially modern cards, I'm looking for either pristine 10 because that fetches a premium, or I want that 9.5. And if it does true gem and true gem plus, that's a huge bonus. So for me, the subgrades are everything with BGS. I would not submit if there was no subgrade options.
All right, so highly overrated for you in this case.
Highly overrated.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think overall BGS 9.5, whether it's min gem or whatever, or no subgrades, it's underrated because it's not valued as much as PSA 10s. But Hyung's point, like, I was nodding my head, like, it doesn't make sense. Like, if you're offering a $9 grading, like, your whole thing, like, you keep losing the point. Like, you lose the plot. You are a grading company that offers subgrades. Like, that's your bread and butter. That's what people want to see from your company. Why are you, if you want to do really well by your clientele, by your customer base, do $9 with subgrades. And I guarantee you everyone's going to come back to BGS. Mm-hmm. Everyone's going to be like, wow, that's amazing. And so when you're saying like, oh, it's $9 without subgrades versus $30, like Hyung said, it's like, what's the difference here? Like, are you saying that your $9 one you're not going to look into as carefully? Like, because then that just, again, Beckett just devalues their own brand by coming up with some of these ideas. Like, I've never seen a company shoot themselves in the foot and in the face as often as they do with their ideas. Like, who is in charge? They need to hire
Who is in charge? Yeah. Who is in charge? That's why Beckett is the most. Let's go. It's crazy. Like, the biggest thing with Beckett too. Just I'm ranting here, but like, for us, we all know what was Beckett known to us as. Not even before grade. Exactly. The magazine. Yeah. Like, to me, that was like the grail. I have one. I actually have a magazine. They need to implement that. So with I know the last episode we talked about platforms and stuff. Beckett should just have their Beckett price guide accessible, and you have the prices going up or prices going down every month. You know what I mean? You have the price list accessible online where you could just, find your card and there's your market value. But anyways, like, Beckett, get your, head out of your butt, seriously.
Yeah.
I used to really like Beckett. That's why I still have BGS slabs. I haven't sent one single card to BGS ever since that debacle.
Yeah.
Still.
Which debacle? Debacle number one?
The many debacles.
Debacle
number one. Pandemic. Yeah.
The pandemic
when they just
debacle.
Shut down and didn't. Yeah. They ghosted everyone.
Peaced out. Yeah.
Seriously, that's their number one. Customer service should be their number one concern.
Yeah.
Not all those. Other things we're discussing now. Like, yeah. So hopefully, to your point, Will, is there someone capable, in charge, listening to the masses, or at least the BGS fans out there like us? I wanted to succeed. I said this before in other podcast episodes. I need BGS to succeed because I love the slabs. I personally like it better than PSA. I know some of you guys don't, but and I love the subgrades. The subgrades, exactly to your point too. That's why we get BGS, and I see the temptation to go non-subgrades to compete more aligned with PSA and SGC, but you're not going to compete with those guys. Like, it's a futile effort in my opinion. All right, last one. We're going to go to SGC 10, which is their only gem mint.
I'm going to say underrated based on value. I don't mind SGC 10s. I personally have SGC 10s in my collection. Even my PC. I have a couple actually, and I don't mind them at all. I don't mind SGC slabs. I think a lot of people don't like them. They think they're ugly, but I think they're underrated, and you could find great deals. Like we said, it's always SGC hunting. I'll go SGC hunting and pay 50% of a PSA 10 slab any day. Any day of any card, I'll be happy with it, right? So, for me, I think it's super underrated, and I think SGC is making a storm just because they're doing things right in terms of how they're approaching grading, how they approach customer service, how they're offering deals at release. This encourages people to rip and submit. These are all proactive things that we need to expect from a large player in the game, SGC, Beckett, PSA. These guys are the leading graders in our industry. So this is what we need to expect from them. So, like I said, I've been nothing but happy. A lot of praises to SGC. A lot of people don't like the resale value right now, but it's all the way you see it. Some people could look at it as a poor resale value from a seller's perspective, but from a buying opportunity, that's on the flip side, that's a great buying opportunity as well. So,
yeah. For my PC, if I send it to grading, it's most likely going to be SGC just because I like the slabs there the most. I think it looks really clean. I like I said in previous podcasts, I just like the minimalist look. I don't want too much other than the card to be showing. So a lot of my PC stuff I actually sent off to SGC. And like Hyung saying, like, I'm targeting SGC cards at this Sports Cards Expo because I know people don't value it the way that I value it. Now, obviously, with all of these cards, like, I'm not targeting like base. Like, it's like if I see a Vladdy Topps Chrome Blue auto and it's in a SGC slab, that's as good as a PSA slab or a BGS slab. There's 150 of these made, and maybe like 40 are gem mint across the three companies. So it's like I don't care if it's an SGC slab. Like that's a card that I'm gonna keep for a very long time in value. So I'll go SGC hunting with Hyung at the show. We'll try to find some ones. And like Hyung saying, like they try really hard. They do a lot of different promos. They do a lot of different things. And you know, I always get comments about the analogies that I use, especially on this podcast. But to me, it's like that guy or that girl that you know, they try really hard. They're not the best looking, but they have a really good personality, and they're really committed to that person that they're trying to get after, and they're always there. They're reliable, and they're always trying to wow that person, and eventually you can change their heart. You can get them to fall in love with you, and I feel like SGC. That's what they're doing.
I like that.
Yeah, I'm in love with them. I love SGC slabs, so they got me.
I like that comparison. You come up with the gems for sure.
That's a true gem plus.
There you go. You know what? When you describe, I think I'm an SGC then. You know, like I'm not the greatest looking guy, but you know, my personality takes me a long way. So I'll take that as a compliment.
Well, you know? we know all of each other's like families and loved ones and whatever. Yeah. We all did great for ourselves. So.
Agreed, 100%.
Yeah. We all traded up. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, I like it. I'm not going to say much more than saying SGC 10 is undervalued. Yeah, for sure. When you see the listings on SGC 10 cards on eBay, like they're not premium right now. Yeah. But I mean, like SGC as a brand is here to stay. They're true competitors. And I think it's just a matter of time that they'll be, you know, up there competing with PSA and BGS. And some might argue they're already surpassed BGS at this point. So SGC is here to stay. I have confidence in them as a grading company. And like you said, even especially the double dimes, 10 grade, 10 auto.
It looks nice.
Pretty sweet. Yeah, pretty sweet. All right, that wraps up another edition of Overrated, Underrated. I know there was a couple that Johnny suggested in WhatsApp chat. We'll save that for when he returns because there's a bunch of different grades possible out there, and it's fun to talk about for sure. Okay, let's finish off the show with our regular weekly segment we call Pick One. And if you're new to the show, this is when we put up two cards or two sets or two players, and then we each debate on which one we would rather invest in. So, Hyung, do you want to start things off? Do the honors?
You know what? We'll go Will.
Okay.
Let's go Will. Yeah, let's change it up a bit.
Oh, I wasn't ready for this. I got to pull up my notes. Okay, my 1v1 are the second most and the third most PSA 10 gem mint graded cards. So the second most is the 2019 Prism Zion Williamson base.
Oh man,
has a pop of 22,713.
Wow.
PSA 10s. And the average sales for the last 2 weeks have been and there's been about like 40 sales. And over the last 2 weeks and the last 3 months, it's about like $75 US versus the number 3 most PSA 10 gem mint graded cards, which is the 2018 Topps Update Juan Soto US 300. Yes. And that has a pop of 22,450. And the average sales for that is about 55 US. Yeah. So Pop is almost the same, 22,700, 22,450. And Zion 75, and Juan Soto's 55. So which one are you buying?
Man, I'll go first on this. As
you have to buy one, Hyung.
As a baseball guy, come on, what am I gonna buy? And the ironic part of this is I have one and not the other. It's the opposite. I would pick the Soto in this case because you know what? The US 300 is a legendary card. To me, US 300 is an iconic card from the get-go from a hobby perspective. It's paperback, it's flagship. Like, we always looked at the US 300 as kind of like Soto's true rookie card. So I'll leave it at that with Soto. On the flip side, Zion, a lot of injury concerns that we've been talking about, and he's the worst dressed player officially, right, in the NBA. Like, so that's a fact, for me, you're paying 25% more for Zion anyways. I'm going cheap with the Soto at $50 on this one, but I think the Sotos were as high as like $300 at one point. Those Sotos.
I think his peak was about 300,
but Zion's
peak was like almost 1,000.
Oh, that's crazy.
So you're not swayed by that?
Yeah, I'm not swayed by that because of the way Zion dresses. So I'm out. That was the last straw.
Wow. Okay.
The last straw was his attire.
Yeah, he needs help in that department for sure. You know what? It's easy for me, not just because I'm a baseball guy too. I'm obviously choosing Juan Soto, but both these cards are just not going to appreciate in value. So I'd rather lose $50 than 75. Okay? So,
that's a good way to look at
Juan Soto all the way. It's just going to go down or stay right now. I guess it'll stay at this price. So yeah, this is we're past the hype, the 2021 hype. So there you go.
So maybe it's just because I want to be a contrarian. I own the US 300. I love that card. Like, it's an iconic. It's a beautiful card.
Yeah.
But I think I want one Zion, and I feel
it's an iconic image.
I feel like Zion, he has the ability, like, because basketball hobby wise is like way more volatile and has higher peaks. And I feel like, there's always a chance. Zion's going to have a crazy year.
Mm-hmm.
And then that card's going to go up in value. And then, so I'm going to go Zion. Even though I love baseball, yeah.
I understand that logic. For sure, there's a world where that happens. But it's an alternate dimension that I just don't see.
Multiverses now?
Yeah. Where Zion's the best dresser and the best basketball player. There's a multiverse out there. All right, you want to go, Hyung, or should I go?
You go ahead. I'll go last.
Okay. So I chose basketball. Speaking of basketball, guys. So I got, on one hand, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with the OKC Thunder. Really killing it there. So he has a PSA 10 silver prism, pop count of 557, and it last sold for almost $340. All right, so 340, pop count of 560 about. And then on the other side, I'm going back to this, Luka Doncic silver prism PSA 10, and that has a pop count, as we know, of almost 2,200, and it's going down. It's sold for just about 1,500 now. So yeah, I'm curious to see, you're going to pay the 3x price for Luka, or are you going to go with Shai?
You go ahead, Will.
What was the peak for Luka Silvers?
Peak for Luka Silvers?
Like $5,000?
Ridiculous. That's so crazy.
I think it was 7. I think it was really high.
Oh my god. That's nuts.
So yeah, it's gone down for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, everyone says Luka's the next GOAT and all of this stuff and whatever, but I gotta be honest, I was never fully convinced.
What?
Yeah, I'm still not there. I don't.
Oh, man, okay.
I don't know that he will make his teammates better. I don't know. And maybe it's because Dallas has always had just such a crappy team.
Sure.
But when I watch Shea, like, he makes everyone better. He is so dynamic. And I feel like his brand of basketball is so much more enjoyable to me. And he's Canadian, so right. I picked Shea.
Okay.
Yeah.
The peak actually for Luka's Silver Prism PSA 10 was just over 9,000.
Holy
God! I also don't want to spend that much money for a hollow, like a silver hollow
with 2,000 pop count.
Yeah, so I'll go Shea. I'm Shea all the way.
Man,
right.
so what are we doing this for investment purposes, or are we doing this for investment purposes? If it's investment purposes, do you know what was the bottom of Luka's silver PSA 10s other than like pre-COVID?
I think it's pretty close to right now.
It is the bottom. See, I personally think there's still bottom to go with Luka on these silvers. That's my concern. At $1,500, it's a good deal. Like I said, I said somewhere around 1,000. That's my bottom for Luka silvers. That's where it probably should be priced. And SGA, I think, has a lot more room to grow. But like I said, SGA basically averaged 30 plus points this year, and his card went pretty much sideways after January and even down a bit, right? So I don't know if Shea is going to have the hobby love because he's doing everything right and he still doesn't get kind of like the hobby love. But like I said, Luka could also go down in value. So I think the safer investment at this point would be Shea. But I think I would still go Luka because of how much people are on him. Like liquidity does matter, and SGA is very hard in terms of liquidity. I think Luka silver, that's good as it's good as cash, right? Like you can move that really, really quick, really easily. So man, $1,500 is a lot though for that card. $330 for that Shea.
Yes, $340.
You know what?
Yep.
I'm going $340 with the Shea. That's way too cheap.
Okay, all that preamble, and then he switches. He pulled a John.
I pulled a John. It's too big of a price difference.
Okay, well, I mean that's why I threw it out there. Like I have a silver prism, as you know. I'm getting nervous. I agree with you. I think the bottom could still it's still falling. So I'm gonna try to trade it at the show just coming up next week, or at least just sell it for 15 around there, and then just try to reinvest that into something else.
Four Shays.
Four Shays.
Maybe one Shay and something else. But at this point, just because I feel like the bottom's still going to drop for Luka's silver, and it looks like it's stabilizing for Shea. He's probably going to make all NBA team, first team this year. And the pop count, it's like a quarter of Luka. Like at some point, I know sometimes it's futile to go against hobby logic. You could be waiting forever to think that hobby logic is going to change at some point. But that's just lower pop, and that price point is too good to give up. So I'm going with Shea too. And the tiebreaker is that he's Canadian. So Shea sweep. And if anyone wants a Luka silver, I'm selling. All right. With that, thanks again for tuning in. Will, of course.
Hey, you forgot mine. I went last, and
I got so used to him going first.
I know.
You messed me up. This is the last time we're doing this order. All right, Hyung, let's go.
Well, since we talked about Wander and his hot start in the last episode, let's go Wander shopping. So if he does pan out, there might be some opportunities. I'm going to go a rookie card versus prospect card in this situation. So 2022 Topps Chrome Sapphire Wander Franco, PSA 10. Last sold for, I think it was 600 on the uptrend, but a lot of those in March, April were at 400. So I would say around $500 for a Sapphire 10. of Wander, and the pop count's at 48, versus a 2019 Bowman Chrome, his first, non-auto, atomic first, PSA 10 with a pop count of 131, last sold for 520. So they kind of look like sapphires. The atomic looks like a white sapphire, the blue sapphire versus kind of like the white sapphire in 2019. Both $500. If you're gonna invest in a Wander Franco, a PSA 10 for $500, which one are you guys gonna choose?
So the atomic is numbered, yeah?
It's not. The auto. Not. The auto is numbered to 100. The atomic is one per hobby box. That's the kind of like when you're pulling it. You had one atomic card per hobby box, so it's like an SP.
So they're both they're not like serial numbered.
No, they're both not non-serial numbered, but lower pop count. 48 on the sapphire, and then 131 on the atomic.
So I like the atomic look, and I like the sapphire look. I really like those designs. For me, it all goes down to my hatred for Bowman Chrome or Bowman.
Really?
I just don't like seeing skinny versions of these baseball stars when they're 15 years old and they're wearing like minor league jerseys.
It's minor league life.
And they're like, I know they're eating PBJ sandwiches, trying to survive. But I just like, I like Wander's Topps Chrome image a little bit more, so I'll go with that one.
Interesting. Sapphire.
Topps Chrome, that's the image where he's thumping his chest.
Yeah. It's kind of like his flagship Topps Chrome image.
Oh, okay, yeah. Man, I usually go for the Bowman, but
I know. I don't think you have
you're a
one
Bowman guy.
He is not a flagship rookie type guy at all.
No. If I do, I send it to SGC to grade and then sell it right away.
Yeah, it's true.
I had the US 300 Juan Soto.
That's right. SGC 10.
Yeah, and got $100 for it. So
nice.
There you go. But I don't know. It looks weird without the auto. It's the exact same picture with the auto, right? Like the Bowman Chrome. And I don't know if I'm an auto snob. I just need the auto, right? So if it doesn't have the auto, then I'm gonna lean towards the Topps Chrome because it's kind of a color match too with the sapphire.
Yeah.
And I like that image of that's like, there's some images that I don't care for when we talk about Topps Chrome, but that one of Wander Franco is pretty cool. So I'm gonna go with the sapphire as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's gonna be
a lower pop, right?
Yeah, it's 48 versus 131.
Yeah, so there you go.
Man, I would have never thought that you would have picked the sapphire, but it's going to be a sapphire sweep. I just think it's priced right. The atomics aren't as scarce as you would like them to be, so that kind of draws me off of it. But a lot of people like the first Bowman Chrome image. Sure. It's a Wander's auto is a huge chase in that set. So it kind of is an iconic card, whereas the Sapphire is a lot newer. But you look at the successful Sapphires in the past, starting with Acuna Sapphire leading the way, has huge upside with that card. And then you go to the Tatis Sapphire, the Ohtani Sapphire. They've all done well in the past at peaks. And I think at $500, I remember even with Vladdy Sapphires, I think I had 20 Vladdy Sapphires at one point. Because they were like $200 each. Everybody thought they were crazy. PSA 10s, I submitted all of them. Probably had like 12 PSA 10s out of the 20, and they ended up going over $1,000 when I sold. Right, so like to me, Sapphire has a history of doing well in terms of in terms of the potential, especially with the pop count. And if Wander Franco kind of goes off, this is where the pop count I think really holds value well. Is you won't see a lot of Sapphire sales until they start going higher. There's only 48 that exist, so I'm going to go with the lower pop count in this case, and the upside of the Sapphire set as my decision. And now you may.
I feel
That's a
like
good
there
one.
needs to be more attention drawn to the fact that Clark picked the Topps Chrome flagship.
Yeah, this is I'm calling I'm calling BS on
momentous.
this here. This is not right.
You know what? Let me sleep on it, and I'll get back to you on the next podcast episode. See if I change my mind. All right. Okay, so now we can end the show. Thanks to everyone for listening, and thanks Will again for joining the pod. He's always a reliable substitute. And yeah, I know the fans love it. So we'll see you guys next week for a brand new episode. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.